Forged with a passion for steel and an iron-like eye for talent. This is the Recruiter of Steel podcast. Blast right in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to yet another episode of the Recruiter of Steel podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Rossi, and today I am happily joined by Mike Gajdostik. Mike is currently the Vice President of Commercial Sales over at Reibus. He's been in the industry for over 17 years, and today we're here to talk about the future of steel and what that looks like. So, Mike, thank you for gracing the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Tyler. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, awesome. So, Mike, how'd you get your start in steel? I'm curious.
Yeah, so I joined right out of college, actually. The story isn't that exciting. It's one where I was in the Kohl Center, University of Wisconsin-Madison, walking through the halls of a career fair and stumbled upon a small company called Ryerson without knowing really what they were. Started talking to the recruiters that were there, one of them being the general manager that ran that facility out of the Milwaukee location. Mm-hmm. He asked me point blank, "What do you know about steel?" And I said, "I don't know anything about it. Tell me what it's about." And so that kind of was the early conversation. We got to chatting about my background. He said, "You know what? We're intrigued. Let's have a further discussion." Brought me in for an interview, interviewed with a couple different leaders in that organization. And the next thing I know, I had an opportunity to join that organization kind of in an entry-level position. And 17 later, here I am still in that industry. Different roles, a lot of growth throughout that. The best decision I ever made, frankly, for my own career was giving it a chance and taking something that I knew nothing about and really leaning into it. And now, looking back, it's something I don't regret at all. And one of the most exciting parts of kind of my journey in the last 17 years has been in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And what made you stay? I mean, what about the opportunity at Ryerson said, "You know what, I want to continue my career in this industry"?
Yeah, they don't let you out, Tyler. Once you're in, you're not allowed to leave. At least that's what everyone tells you. But realistically, it's. I think there's so many different directions you can take this career. Whether it's general line distribution, like I kind of started in, but even within those organizations or those companies, there's a variety of different ways you can be a part of the steel industry or the metals industry. Whether you're in finance, whether you're in operations, whether you're just on the floor and you're an actual employee that's building the products or loading the trucks. So what really intrigued me, and I think what kept me in it, was the different iterations of quote unquote the metals industry that you can take this. My career started in an operations role, very entry level, with really no defined job description, and it's evolved to an executive level position, leading strategy, and really throughout that journey I've been a part of both operations but also supply chain, manufacturing, and spent a heavy part of that in more of the value add, so more building products, quoting high complexity fabrications for large OEMs, as well as with those organizations. And that's what's kept me in it. It's the excitement and the ability to not just sell a product or be a part of an industry, but rather see the things that I'm selling out on the street, walking by with my 6-year-old daughter and pointing to the parts that your dad had fabricated, and having that kind of reward of seeing what you have done in the common world. And I think that's something that is very important to highlight, is until you're really in this industry, I don't think you have an appreciation for how prevalent it is in our everyday life. And for me, sure, the ability to kind of say metals is everywhere, and I've been a part of that for almost 2 decades now, and with several years to go in my my career yet, is something that I think I don't really want to be anywhere else. It's where I've kind of cut my teeth and found a home, and I'm here to stay. as long as they'll let me. So that's kind of why I'm still here doing what I've been doing. But what I will say, it's far from what I started doing, and I think that is something important to highlight. Is just because you're in the industry doesn't mean you're doing the same thing that you were doing last year or even 10 years ago. There's so many different ways you can take this to fulfill what really is your expertise or your passion. It's just finding that, that fit.
Yeah, absolutely. And steel is 100% all around us every day. Whenever you walk out the door, you're probably going to see steel somewhere. So totally agree with that. And I think that provides, a perspective for anyone who joins the industry, right? To see the impact that the work that you're doing has on everyday life. Because for some industries, it's not so easy to say that, right? If you're in, let's say, working for a software company and it's a very niche product or something like that, you don't often see it in practical use. But with steel, it's everywhere. One thing I want to ask you too, Mike, because you were sucked in, they won't let you leave, but you did enjoy learning the metals industry and everything. What specifically about it have you noticed change? Because you've been in this since 2007, coming up on 2 decades. What is the biggest differences that you've seen, let's say now in 2024 going in 25 versus back when you started 2007?
I think there's a lot that's changed, and frankly, there's a lot that hasn't. And I think that's something that, we have to kind of not just talk about the things that are different, but also the things that aren't, that maybe should be. And so, and I say that with the best of intentions. But in 2007, it was kind of that precipice of technology just kind of becoming more usable on an everyday life. Back then we had the early indications of the Amazons, but it wasn't an everyday thing that you utilized.
Sure.
Your cell phone was a powerful tool to communicate with your close contacts, but it wasn't something that ran everything you do. You didn't necessarily always use it to check your bank account. You weren't exclusively communicating with your friends and family that way. There was no video. And so I think the adoption and the migration of some of the historical ways of reaching out to customers, interacting and engaging, as well as the appetite of those customers, receptiveness to it, technology and the ability to reach without having to necessarily be in front of them. Case in point, here we are talking. You're in Texas, I believe, and I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and
Connecticut.
we're worlds
close enough, though.
Connecticut. My apologies.
Might be better off in Texas, but that's okay.
Yeah. But the reality is, we're very far apart from each other, and yet we're having a conversation like we're sitting across the table. I think the adoption of that is something that's evolved. COVID did a lot of that. It kind of forced that hand. Yeah. But it was starting to matriculate already. People were having Zoom calls or meetings prior to that through Teams towards the last, say, 5 to 10 years of this. And so, that's certainly a lot. And a lot of technology has gone into how businesses are operating, the capabilities of the equipment and the cutting tools, the plasmas, the lasers, et cetera. Everything advances every year. FabTech's going on right now down in Orlando, Florida this week. Yep. They're releasing all the new latest and greatest in technologies. And so while that's all changing, I think there still is this constituent of, things that haven't, that maybe should. And what those are, it kind of depends on what the organizations are looking for. But I think one big thing is the more these organizations evolve and the more this industry becomes a little more forward thinking, the more the future is secured. And I say that because we've all been in organizations, and I don't think there's a single organization right now that isn't talking about how they're going to backfill what they're seeing as a large exodus of seasoned senior people in their organizations and how they're going to replace that. Because the pool of candidates coming behind them, they're not exactly coming out, much like I was, with the knowledge of the opportunities that exist in this industry. And I think that we're trying, but it just doesn't hit, right? It's not what you read or see on the daily news or in your, whatever feed. And again, even like news, you're getting that through Google News every morning, reading, snippets. It's quick action, decisions or information. It's less of kind of the old way of reading the newspaper in the morning with your coffee. There are still several people doing that and several organizations operating, and that's not wrong. But I think to survive and evolve, you have to consider maybe there's a shift in some of the things we've done for, say, the last 5 decades, that in the next 5 decades, they become somewhat obsolete or need a refresh or rebrand in order to attract the high schooler thinking about where he wants to go to college, and better yet, the college kids that are thinking about, what do I want to do next year when I graduate in this world of, 4 years ago, it was like, I want to be in a SaaS company. Right now, those SaaS companies are trying to figure out how to survive in some cases.
Yeah.
Because, they've been tattered by the economy and different things.
Sure.
And steel and metals is a great place to land. And again, the lack of knowledge is one of the only things that these people have in considering that. And I think just awareness, the attainability of this industry is something that, we all need to promote. And it's for us all to survive and share, the great career that can be had in it. So, I know a lot of organizations are doing that, and I don't mean no one is, but there has to be this shift, and, so that we can all stay relevant and still becomes the place and one of the best industries to kind of land in with the wealth of opportunity, regardless of what you're looking for in that career.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you hit the nail exactly on the head. And that's exactly why I started this podcast too, Mike, because, being a recruiter in this space, my goal was to say, you know what, I want to do more than just place positions, right? I want to be a recruiter for the industry as a whole and bring in the new talent that we need, bring in a more diversified talent pool that we could use, right? And it's not easy to do so, because I think a lot of the times, like you said, we are a little bit slow to adopt certain technology pieces, certain marketing efforts, and maybe taking advantage of social media and different, avenues that we have right now at our fingertips today. But it needs to be done. And, there is a talent pool out there. Is always the next generation. And if we don't capture that next generation, someone else will. So it is important to get on top of that. One thing I want to ask you, Mike, because I do get this question a lot from candidates outside the industry, is if I'm looking to break in, let's say I'm, been in healthcare for 5 years, or I've been in SaaS for 2 years, or maybe I'm coming right out of college like you did. What's the best way to break into the world of steel?
Man, great question. I think it's just giving it a chance, right? Half of it is trusting that the career is a place you can make a great living, you can enjoy, and be fulfilled. And so that's step one. I think it's just like anything else. All change has some aspect of risk and the potential that it may not work out. And so if you're coming out of a SaaS company and you're trying to go to another SaaS company, the same risk it exists.
Sure.
It may be less of a pivot, or less of kind of you might feel more comfortable, but you're still taking a flyer, right? You're still throwing something at the wall and hoping that it sticks. That's no different than metals. I think one thing that I, iterate to many as I'm interviewing and bringing in, younger talent or trying to grow is, listen, you're not going to know everything on day one, and probably not going to know anything on year one, but that's okay. We have people, you have myself, we're here to build you. We're here to pass that torch. I need you to be successful, and I will pour into you. And so find a great mentor, or find a great leader, or talk to someone that's been in the industry if you're unsure, and pick their brain, right? Someone you trust, someone that you can rely on. They're going to give you the honest feedback.
Yep.
Maybe outside of that organization, and get a perspective before you make that decision exclusively with no real time on the job. And I would say give it a chance, right? You're not gonna make a career in year one. A career is made over several years and a time. And so it's going to take some time to feel comfortable, and that's okay. It's new, it's different, it's very complex and can be overwhelming at times, but we all started on a day one somewhere in this industry, whether it was 17 years ago like myself, or yesterday like someone that just accepted an offer. Yeah. So don't give up on it. know that people around you, much like myself, are trying to build the next level of leaders in our organizations because we need it. I won't work forever. I've got time in front of me. But there is another handing off of that torch that inevitably is going to come, and I want to have my predecessor ready to go. And that's my job right now. It went from being someone who was working for that organization to now grooming and building towards the next leadership positions that we have, and trying to identify those that can slot into those seats when I want to either elevate myself or step away from this industry, ultimately at some point, for retirement or whatever that is. I want to have that person right behind me who is ready to go. And so as a commitment to my team and my employees, that's something I think we as leaders and some of the more mature, seasoned veterans in this industry have to acknowledge. If we want to survive, we have to spend some time building up the people behind us, and because they're not going to get it. And we all had mentors that helped us, at least the majority of us did, to get to where we're at. We didn't do this on our own. And I didn't know metal on day one, but here I am, far from knowing it all, but definitely a lot more equipped than I was, in 2007.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And two things for everybody listening. Number one, there are very, very lucrative opportunities in this industry. Six-figure base salaries are not uncommon. There's definitely a path to leadership, as Mike just suggested. I mean, we have to keep this in mind too. And I don't have exact data points on this, so feel free to fact check me, anybody. But I believe that the average age in the industry, at least for an executive, is someone in his mid-50s and probably 80% male, right? That's kind of where we are currently as an industry. So what does that mean, right? There's a large portion of executives of talent that is going to retire in the next 5 to 10 years. There's also a great opportunity for women, for minorities to come in as well. So there's a lot of opportunity that is going to be opening up in this industry. There's a definite need for new talent coming in, and if you are new talent that is possibly keeping your ears peeled, or your ears perked up for the steel industry, just know that there are tremendous opportunities both at the entry level area, both at mid management level, and then at the senior executive level too. All of that is going to be opening up. And obviously we're foraying into the future, right? We have different companies and opportunities like Reibus. We could kind of segue into that, Mike, but technology players in the space that are looking to make a difference and kind of pave the way to the future of steel and what that looks like. So, Mike, I want to kind of talk about where you are now with Reibus and everything that's going on there. How is that playing a role in the future of steel, and what is the outlook in the next 5 to 10 years with that?
Yeah. So, not to kind of toot our own horn or really fixate on Reibus, because there's a lot of people out there offering services and solutions outside of just what we're doing.
Sure.
So, as I speak to this, I think it's a broader conversation, less about Reibus specifically, but obviously that's where I have the most acumen in the last 4+ years being with this organization, and really taking it from a company that was an idea all the way up to someone that's now, lasted and been relevant for 4 years. And so, I think it's just the openness. It's consideration of maybe, what we've done historically in the past can be adjusted, and it's not right or wrong. It's just a different option, right? And having options, much like having tools to a carpenter, is something that you want to have and be equipped with. And it's one of those times where I think being open and consideration and just learning about it, maybe spending a little time to get a better understanding of what it is that respective solution you're considering can do for you. Because what we find is there's often misconceptions in what we're really trying to accomplish as a partner, not as a replacement. Sure. And that's key, right? This industry is here to stay. The organizations that we're trying to work with are great at what they've done, and they've shown that. They're, in some cases, 185 or close to 200 years being operated. And I worked for a couple of those companies. I'm not saying that we're trying to do anything different then simply just add and look at future opportunities and ventures that may not have existed. And so saying that it won't work because it's never been tried, it is something I think I would just ask everyone, be open to it, have the conversation. If it doesn't work or you have a better option, more power to you, go with that. But in those times that you reach a point where, man, I'm struggling and I've exhausted all of my tools that I have, maybe I should try this other one. That's what we're asking for. We came in kind of in a weird place. Right before COVID is when I joined the organization, and we had been around, but we hadn't really gotten a foothold. And in that kind of 21 to 22 period, when the market went upside down and we saw 300% increase in pricing and allocations and shortages and all of the other global pandemic disruptions that we dealt with, we were there. We were present and we were helping customers. And there were several that sung our praises. And so, they were willing to give us a try. And again, if the solution was better themselves, we encouraged that. But we wanted them to know that we're not here other than to just help you when you guys, you're reaching a challenge and you need something outside of kind of what you're used to going to or what commonly has worked in the past. Because during that period specifically, those options were gone. Everyone that you went to was in the same predicament. And so reaching wider, deeper, looking at alternatives was more or less kind of, as I would call it, a Hail Mary in some cases that paid dividends for them because they could satisfy a customer need that everyone else had kind of dropped the ball on. They opened themselves up to alternative ways of navigating through tough times. And so when things got back to kind of what I would say normalcy, if you will, I don't know if we've really returned to that. We still see pretty crazy volatility, at least, over the last year and a half or so, since things have quote unquote settled down.
Sure.
Knowing that the new norm exists with companies like Reibus and various others that are also providing, intrinsic value in a focused and a surgical way to help these organizations navigate the ups and downs, specifically to how Reibus approaches it. And we're here to be a partner, not to, cut anyone, off at the legs and try and make them feel like we're going to take them out, because that's not our approach. And I think sometimes that's the definition that gets applied to us, but oftentimes they've not had a conversation to actually understand who we are and what we're trying to do. And so be open to it, give it a try. And you never know, if you're using something like this, you can speak to this tool. You may grab that candidate that's looking for something similar to, how can I see how you guys are evolving over time? And you're saying, hey, we're utilizing cool tools like this, such as steel marketplaces or metals marketplaces, when we need to. And it's different. It's been tried. It's failed in the past. Again, I think some of those attempts were before their time. I do think we're in a different place today with where this industry is heading. And I make that kind of determination because I see other industries that have gone through this evolution. And some of those organizations that were household brands are no longer with us, and I speak to the Kodak. I speak to the Blockbusters. I grew up going and renting movies, DVDs. My daughter used a DVD the other day for an art project at school, and it was mind blowing. She's like, "What is this thing?" I was like, "It used to be how we saved our information and watched videos." She's like, "What about the streaming services?" So, my point there is you have to take it into consideration because eventually it's going to become commonplace. And if you're not ready for that, you're probably already behind. And so let's talk, let's have some discussion, let's figure out how to work together and what you need. Or talk to those other partners you're exploring, right? And just be open and consider what the future might hold, not necessarily what today is requiring. Because I understand today you might be okay, but tomorrow you might run into a problem where that solution has a great application and a solution for you. And so having that ready to deploy is something that you don't want to kind of scramble. You want to get comfortable with and have it available when you need it. And that's all, that's really what I think is something across many different variations, how you recruit talent, how you're operating your company. How are you going to navigate that large exit of leaders in these organizations? How are they going to backfill? I think you said 80%, something like that, is in their 50s or north. Like, how do you overcome that when those individuals walk out of the company? You don't. That's 3/4, 4/5 of your organization that just walked out. You can't possibly bring that talent in unless you're starting today and showing them that it's an exciting place to be and has staying power.
Yeah. No, you hit the nail on the head. And the thing with technology too, everyone's probably dealt with a rotary phone. Now we have an iPhone, right? Everyone's, like you said, maybe had VHS, remember VHS, then DVD. Now we're all streaming. Technology, you can't fear technology, even from a recruiting standpoint, right? There were a lot of recruiters when LinkedIn came around that thought, oh, I guess the industry's done for recruiters, right? LinkedIn's going to do your work for you. No, it's a tool, right? It's a great tool, but it's not going to change or replace your entire industry. I think even the same is with AI, at least in this stage. It is a tool to use. I think everyone should be up to speed on AI and understand how that works. And it could be great to be leveraged for you, but is it going to necessarily replace your job right away? Not necessarily. Even a lot of these self-serving, kiosks or cashiers, right? That job totally hasn't been eliminated yet, because sometimes that human touch is still very, very necessary. And when it comes to the steel industry, nobody's trying to reinvent the wheel here, but there are certain technological pieces and certain ways that we can use different tools to make it better, to make it more efficient, and to kind of bring it into that future. So, Mike, with kind of going off this topic, right? I know we talked specifically about Reibus, but just in a grand scheme, right? If we're thinking about the future of steel as a whole, what does that look like, and where do you think the industry as a whole needs to go to properly bring itself into, the next 5 to 10, 15 years?
I think, again, it just goes back to education, right? You have to make it attainable or visible to more. The high schoolers and the college kids thinking about what do they want to do, they're not seeing the industry as prevalently as maybe they should. And so I think it's making it accessible. It's getting out there, having conversations, looking at the types of school programs, maybe starting school programs, building that pipeline, getting people to see, even at a young age, there's places where kids can go to, see excavators run, the big dig, and different things like that to get excited about, the type of construction opportunities that exist in the world. We should have more open houses. We should allow organizations or individuals to come see our companies and get a taste of what it is.
Totally agree.
And see how cool. I think it's just opening those doors a little bit wider. And it's not that we're not trying to, but I think it's putting a focus on it, having a plan to say, if I'm trying to recruit in a local market, I need the local market to know that I'm here in the first place. Because oftentimes these companies aren't on the main, interstates right off of, downtown, where other big companies' logos are showing up. They're in the corner. It's viewed as kind of I don't want to say it, but the dirty, corners of the industry, because it's loud, it's noisy, but that doesn't make it bad. That just is something that we have to kind of make it more visible, like I said. And I think you touched on marketing. I think you touched on these sorts of conversations. And I think it's also promoting some of the youth that's in the organization and letting them have a voice, right? Taking them and having them speak and be more received by people that look and feel like them, from a place of perspective, right? If I want to convince a young high schooler or a college kid to come in and give steel or metals in industry, I'm probably not going to throw the guy right before retirement to go explain to him how he does his job. I'm going to pull someone that they can kind of see themselves in and understand they're cut from the same cloth of the world. And so, all voices right now are important, especially the ones that are closer to the talent pool that we're trying to bring in. And then so those are just a couple ways that I see this really, again, not saying that they're not doing it already, but everyone should start to consider this if you're not in your organization, because if you don't, you're already behind, and the rush to kind of catch back up, you may never catch it at the numbers that we're seeing of what is 5 to 10 years out from where we're at today.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. One thing, and again, this podcast in and of itself, right? Trying to create another medium to potentially get people interested in steel, or get that new generation, or those folks that maybe are experienced in other industries but haven't given steel any thought and would be open to it, a chance, right? Give them an idea to learn about the applications of it, how it affects your daily life, what the opportunities in the industry are, right? That's kind of the whole premise of this whole Recruiter of Steel platform that we're creating here. But no, I think, as far as the marketing efforts of companies in the steel industry, I think there's still a lot of opportunity. I think social media, especially with young talent, provides a great opportunity. One thing that, even I'm rolling out myself is partnering with a local videographer and going to some of our clients and our companies and showcasing a recruitment style video and cutting those into clips so you could put it on TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook and hit all sorts of different demographics, right? Because the future is video. The future is on at your fingertips with your phone and social media and all that. So it's very important to get the word out. And I think if the steel industry could land the messaging right, you're going to have a lot of success getting interest, because it is so impactful and it is so different than, let's say, tech or SaaS or anything like that. So I think there is huge opportunities there. We are coming up on time, Mike. So I wanted to do a couple rapid fire questions and then give you final thoughts, and then we'll go from there. So first question. So, and this is kind of what we alluded to before, but for somebody outside the industry looking in, what is your advice?
Talk to someone in it. That's step one. If you're on the fence and it's hard to know what you don't know, and I say that to people that join the industry, don't overthink, what you don't know. Just be open and receptive to what you learn and build upon that, right? It's build a foundation and keep growing from there. No different than any other thing you're going to do in life. You can't possibly know everything on day one. And so if you're on the fence, find someone that has success or has staying power and reach out to them. We're all available. I think the majority of the people that I've worked with and helped me get to where I'm at, were available. We're open to it, whether they were my direct managers or someone outside of that.
Sure. Great advice. Now, same question, but for somebody in the industry looking to grow their career, what would be your advice to them?
I think it's the same answer, a little bit differently. Look at what you want to do. I think that's really important. Everyone wants, ideally they want more money and they want growth and they want bigger responsibility, but you have to figure out kind of where you want that and how you want that, right? And also I think it's important to acknowledge, is that really what I want? A lot of people want to, because the natural progression of a sales rep is inside sales, maybe outside sales, sales manager, et cetera. And you kind of evolve. That's the charted, blazed trail. But do you enjoy managing people? Because I will say the shift from an individual contributor as a sales rep to a people leader is totally different. It's a totally different skill set. And so
sometimes your best salespeople don't make your best sales managers too.
100%, right? And I think it's important to note that, like, I don't like dealing with people problems. I just want to sell, but I want to be a manager. Well, then you're not really aligned in your own self. And so again, get out there, ask to shadow, ask to mentor, get a taste of what a day in the life is. Everyone thinks that's what they want to do, but they may not have perspective of, all the things you don't see as a manager and all of the headaches that you have to deal with at times that aren't as exciting and enjoyable, or how many swords you fall on for your team, as a manager. And so again, the grass may not always be greener, but I think until you understand really what you're asking for, it's hard to know whether that's really what you want to do or not. And so again, I think education, knowledge is power.
Absolutely. And last rapid fire question. So for the industry as a whole, for executives, leaders in the industry, what would be your advice on where to go, how to grow, charting the future?
And I think it's looking at new ways. You mentioned AI. I think that's going to be at the forefront, and evaluating your current business processes and saying, is there a way to do this more efficiently? One, because it's a benefit to my people, but also it's a benefit to the bottom line, right? And the power of AI and other technologies that are coming, machine learning and different things, is immense. It's amazing how much our team right now is leveraging that just to educate themselves. We get an inquiry or we get asked a question that we may not know the answer to. I'm unavailable to provide that answer to them. They pull up ChatGPT, they type it in, and ChatGPT throws back a great answer that gives them enough information to go forward, at least from what it's gathering, and it may not be perfect, but doesn't mean my answer is going to be perfect either, because I don't know it all, but it gives them the ability to continue to learn and educate and have, again, as you mentioned, a tool or an arrow in their quiver that they can deploy when they need to. And I think just being open to that conversation, figuring out and studying, your business to say what areas might benefit from this, again, not to replace the people, but to maybe improve the processes that people are deploying right now, is something that's immensely valuable to all organizations across all sectors and industries, but specifically in steel, because I would argue we are some of the laggards when it comes to kind of that adoption. And so I'm not saying no one's doing it, but I'm saying there's a large constituent audience that may not be considering that because of various things they're either not comfortable or a little bit uneducated on, and can stand to benefit with very little lift and a great partner that helps them navigate those uncharted waters together. And I think just having the openness to have that conversation and explore is something all companies should have, and find the right fit for you and what's going to make the biggest impact to stay relevant and continue to build great businesses in this industry.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, this has been an absolute pleasure. I want to give you the floor. Any last final thoughts for our audience? Anything we didn't cover that you want to hit home before we go?
No, other than just thanks for the time, Tyler. I love what you're doing here, and I think this is important. I hope, this catches an audience, and if we can bring one person across the line, I think we've done our job. But again, this is a message, I think, to everyone watching this and everyone outside of that, is this isn't something Tyler and myself are going to solve. This is something us as an industry, as an organizational collaborative effort, are going to need to tackle. And it's everyone's part in this. And so be open to the conversation, reach out to those individuals that are kind of lost and looking for something, and bring them in. Because again, I had two options. I could go sell Milwaukee Bucks tickets for a terrible Milwaukee Bucks team back in 2007, or take a paycheck that I was assured, which wasn't much, but I took the sure paycheck and I don't regret it for a day. And here I am 17 years later with, another 2 decades ahead of me at least. And I'm chomping at the bit to see where this thing goes, because, I know I'm going to be part of that leadership team. And 20 years from now, there's going to be a whole new set of conversations we're going to be having if it evolves the way the last 20 have. So I appreciate the time. Anyone that's out there listening to this that is curious or wants to have the conversation, I'm available. Find me on LinkedIn. Let's chat. I love meeting new people, networking, and worst case, just helping you guys, with any questions you might have.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we'll include the link to your LinkedIn in the show notes. And Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure. I think you hit the nail on the head with a lot of topics, including the future of steel. And by the way, for anybody listening that isn't in the steel industry and looking in, the industry's going nowhere, right? It's here to stay. It's in everything. The cars you drive, the bridges you drive over, the skyscrapers you look up at, steel is everywhere. The question is, how do we make a better future for it? And I think Mike has a lot of good answers for it. So Mike, thank you for gracing the podcast. I appreciate it. And everybody, till next time.
Thanks for listening to the Recruiter of Steel podcast. If you enjoyed our finished product, please subscribe and leave a rating. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one.